This qualitative graphs instructional video is for you to do some practice problems that relate to the PlayPosit video that you just completed. For this video, you need to tear out textbook pages 92 through 95 and workbook pages 105 through 108. We are going to start with the textbook pages, starting with problem number 14. Justin takes the bus home from school. He gets off the bus, walks a short distance to his friend's house, and stops to talk. Then he walks to his house. Sketch a graph for this story that compares the distance from home to time. Explain your graph. So as we draw the graph, we have to break the problem apart. It says that he takes the bus home from school, meaning that his distance from home is getting closer. He is getting closer to home. So we're going to go down. He gets off the bus and walks a short distance. So now we're walking, so that takes a lot longer. So our graph is not going to be as steep. Then he stops to talk. Stopping is shown by a straight horizontal line. Then he walks to his house. So again, we are going to continue down the path home. When we describe the graph, we describe each section. The first section is steep because the bus goes quickly. The walking sections are not as steep because he walks slower. The stop is represented by a straight line. Number 15. This graph shows a carpenter's distance from the ground while working on a house. Describe what could be happening in each section of the graph. So first, let's take a look at our graph. The bottom is time, so we know that time is progressing, and the distance from the ground. So down here is going to be at 0, meaning he's on the ground, and the higher we go up means the higher he goes off the ground. So in section A, we can see that he is going up, so he's probably climbing a ladder since he is a carpenter. So in section A, the carpenter climbs the ladder to the top of the house. We then look at section B. Section B is represented by a straight horizontal line, meaning he does not go up higher or lower. He stays at the same height. So we could say in section B, he stays on the roof of the house. Section C has him going back down, that is a downward slope, and so we can say that he is climbing back down to the ground. Section D shows him stopping and resting on the ground. Section E has him again climbing to the roof. And in section F, he stays on the roof. Number 16. This graph shows Mr. Tosti's distance from home as he drives to work one morning. Which section of the graph and corresponding description match. Section A, Mr. Tosti leaves for home, first driving slowly and then picking up speed. Section B, Mr. Tosti continues driving at a constant speed. Section C, Mr. Tosti forgot something and returned home to get it. Section D, Mr. Tosti drives to work, making a stop along the way. So for section A, it says Mr. Tosti leaves home driving slowly and then picking up speed. That graph would look like this. It would go slowly at first, and then it would pick up speed. That does not match the picture, and so letter A is not correct. For section B, it says that Mr. Tosti is driving at a constant speed. A constant speed would be a straight line, so that is not a correct answer. Letter C, Mr. Tosti forgot something and returned home to get it. When he forgot something, that would have him going back home, so he would drive and then he would return back home. In letter D, Mr. Tosti drives to work, making a stop along the way, meaning he would go to work, he would stop, and then he would continue going to work. Letter C is our correct answer. We can follow the path where he goes to work, realizes he has forgotten something, and then has to return home. At the bottom, it says Amir chose D as the correct answer. How did he get that answer? Amir chose D because he did not realize that a stop means no change in distance. Number 1. Lucy flies from New York to Florida to visit her aunt. The graph shows Lucy's trip from her home in New York to her aunt's house in Florida. Which part of the graph shows the ride from the airport in Florida to Lucy's aunt's house? So we can follow the graph along. It starts with her distance from home, meaning Lucy starts at home. So she's starting at her house and she drives to the airport. Then she has to wait at the airport. She then takes her plane to Florida. She has to wait for her aunt to pick her up. She's waiting on the taxi, and then she gets to drive to her aunt's house. So section 5 is where she drives to her aunt's house. Number 2, the graphs represent parts of Lenny's trip on different days, either from home to school or from school to home. Match the graphs to the descriptions of Lenny's trip shown to the right of the graphs. Next to each graph, enter the number 1, 2, 3, 4 of the description that best matches the graph. So looking at graph A, we're starting with the distance from home, and we can see that he's starting away from home. Home's going to be down here at 0, and so he's starting away from home. He stops, and then he goes home quickly. Looking at our possible answer choices, we are going to pick answer choice letter 3. It says at the end of the school day, Lenny walks to a friend's house. He stops and stays there until he takes the bus home. For letter B, his distance from home, he is starting at home down here at the bottom. We can see he goes slowly at first, then he stops, and then he goes quickly. That description matches for letter B, matches number 1. Lenny walks to the bus stop, waits for the bus, and then takes the school to bus. For letter C, distance from home, we can see he was walking away from home, he stops, and then he returns home. This is represented by description number 4. We can see he starts to walk from home to the bus. He pauses to check his book bag, that's the stop, realizes he forgot something, and runs back home to get it. That shows him going back home. Meaning letter D is problem number 2. Lenny waits for his father to pick him up. That's shown by the stopping line. And then his father drives him home. So he goes home quickly because he's in the car. Which of the following words could be used to describe the function within the interval labeled R? Select all that apply. So when it says select all that apply, that tells me that there's going to be more than one correct answer. So looking at section R only, we're looking at this section here. And I'm going to say that 1, it is non-linear because that is not a straight line. And I'm also going to say that it is increasing because it starts here at the bottom and it goes in an upward fashion. It is a positive slope, so it is increasing. Moving on to the workbook, starting on page 105, problem number 1. Explain how the graph in the example shows that the temperature increases at the beginning of the day. What do you know about the slope of the line? So we can look and see that the temperature starts here on the y-axis line and is going up. That's how we know that the graph is increasing. The temperature increases because the line is gradually going up. The slope of the line is positive. Number 2, explain how the graph in the example shows that the temperature stays constant for a while. It stays constant because here in the middle, it is a straight horizontal line. The line in the second part is a straight horizontal line. Number 3, this graph shows the speed of a car on a city street. Describe and interpret section C of the graph. So again, we're talking about speed, and letter C is down here at the bottom, standing here at 0, so we know his speed at 0. If we're talking about a city street, then possibly the car has stopped at a stop sign or a traffic light. Number 4, summarize the graph showing the speed of a roller coaster. So again, it starts down here at 0, so the speed starts at 0. It gradually increases. It decreases as it goes uphill. It increases as it goes downhill. And then decreases until it comes to a stop. Number 5, suppose the label speed in the graph for problem 4 is changed to height. Explain how that would change your summary of the graph. Write a revised summary. So for this summary, if we're talking about height, we would say it starts off at the ground. The coaster climbs the first hill. It drops slightly. It climbs the second hill. and then it goes back to the ground. Number 6. This graph shows Raj's distance from school as he walks home at the end of the day. Describe what could be happening during each section of the graph. So again, his distance from school, he starts down here at the bottom, means he's starting at school. So he starts walking home. He stops to talk to a friend. That is represented by the straight horizontal line. Then the graph goes back to 0, meaning he goes back to school, possibly because he has forgotten something. Then he walks back home as illustrated by section D. Number 7. This graph shows the weight of a puppy over a 6-month period. Tamara says that the puppy's weight increased at a greater rate at the beginning of the 6-month period than at the end. Do you agree? Explain. Yes, we agree. Because the weight slowly goes up in the beginning, then it stops, and then it increases at a steeper rate. The slope of the line at the beginning is not as steep as the slope at the end. For numbers 1 and 2 on page 107, we have to refer to the example. Number 1, why does the line in section A slant upwards? So we're looking at this section here, it's going up. And if we look at description A, it says from his house, he rides at a constant rate until he gets to the store. It shows his distance from home, because that's what we're talking about, the distance from home, is increasing because he is driving away from home. He's going to the store. Number 2, why are the lines in sections B and D horizontal? So B is represented here, the straight horizontal line, and in section D. So in letter B, it says he's at the store for a while, and in letter D, he stops to talk at a friend's house. In those instances, his distance doesn't change. And so it is a straight horizontal line. Number 3, the price of a cable company service increases at a constant rate over time. Would a sketch of the graph show the price starting at 0? Explain why or why not. Then sketch a graph to show the price over time. The answer is no, because a cable company is never going to give away free service. It's never going to be $0. If I wanted to make a graph, I would not start it at 0. I would start it somewhere in the middle. And I would draw a straight horizontal line going up because it is at a constant rate over time. Number 4, suppose the cable service price in problem 3 increases as stated and then stays constant for a limited time before increasing again. Explain how the graph of this situation would differ from the graph in problem 3. So again, we would look at each section. It would increase, so that means it's going to go up. Then it's going to stay constant, so that's going to be a straight line. And then it increases again, so then it's going to go up again. We could say the line would increase. Then stay constant. before increasing again. Number 5. Adele starts driving home from work. On the way home, she stops at the grocery store. Adele then drives home from the store at a slower rate than the first part of her drive. Sketch a graph that shows Adele's distance from work compared to time. So she's going to start driving home from work. So she's starting at work and she's going to drive home. Then she's going to stop at the grocery store. So that's going to be a straight horizontal line. Then she drives home at a slower rate. So we're going to go up slowly versus the fast speed we went in the beginning. Number 6. Jacob and Angel are riding bikes on a bike trail. The first part of the trail is steep, so they ride at a slow rate. Halfway up, they stop and rest for several minutes. Then they slowly continue up the steep part of the trail. After reaching the highest part of the trail, they ride down at a constant rate that is faster than they rode up the first part of the trail. Sketch a graph to show the distance compared to time. So again, we break down each section. It says the first part of the trail is steep, so they ride at a slow rate, meaning we're going to go up slowly. Then they stop and rest for several minutes, so that's going to be represented by a straight horizontal line. Then they slowly continue up the steep part of the trail, so again, going slowly. Then they ride down at a constant rate that is faster than they rode up. So again, we are going to go down, and we're going to go down very quickly. Sales of computers at TechSmart decrease at a constant rate for the first few months of the year. Then sales level off and stay the same for a couple of months. Sales decrease again for a couple months and then finally increase gradually through the end of the year. Sketch a graph to show the sales compared to time and explain your graph. So they are going to decrease at a constant rate for the beginning. So we're going to start high and we're going to decrease, meaning we're going to go down. Then the sales level off and stay the same. So that's going to be represented by a straight horizontal line. They decrease again for a couple of months, and then they increase gradually through the end of the year. As we explain the graph, we could say that the slope is negative when the sales decrease. The slope is positive when the sales increase. Number 8, write a story for a qualitative graph. Sketch a graph for your story and then write a description for each segment of your graph. Now you can write about anything. I am going to narrow down the topics a little bit. We are going to do the bottom section as time, and we're going to do the side section as math scores. And so you get to create a graph and a story that relates to math scores and time. Once you have finished that last problem, tear out and staple textbook pages 92 through 95 and workbook pages 105 through 108 together and turn them into the basket. You are now to work on workbook page 109 and 110. This will be a classwork grade. You can turn it into the basket when you are finished. You will also be given a worksheet. The worksheet will be a quiz grade. Turn both assignments into the basket when finished. Anything you do not finish in class is homework.